Okay. From my previous video, um, I was able to discuss how to plot points with polar coordinates and with sample problems on how to sketch polar equation. So from that, you now have an idea on how to plot polar equation. So this time, I'm going to discuss how to get the length of the polar curve or the arc length for polar curves. The arc length of a polar curve r equal to a function of theta between theta equal to a and theta equal to b is given by the integral, this one. The length of arc is equal to the integral of the square root of r squared plus dr over d theta squared d theta from E to B. Okay. Let's derive this one. Okay. Recall that x is equal to r cosine theta and y is equal to r sine theta. Now, if we differentiate x with respect to theta, the result is this. dx with respect to x with respect to theta, product rule. R derivative sa cosine theta plus cosine theta derivative sa R. Okay. This is the result. Derivative of R with respect to theta times cosine theta plus R derivative sa cosine is negative sine theta. Do the same for Y. We have this. And then next step is to square both sides. Square ni. Ang square sa right side, perfect square sa. So the expansion is this. Square sa first term and then times 2 middle term is twice product sa two terms, this one. And the third term is square sa second term. Similarly for dy over d theta, this is the result. So next step is we add the two equations. So makancel na. Makancel. And the result is ma-add na dx over d theta squared plus dy over d theta squared. For this one, common factor. So ma-add ang cosine squared and sine squared. Sa last term, common factor is r squared and ma-add ang sine squared and cosine squared. But if you'll notice, this one is an identity. Trigonometric identity, and this is equal to 1. So it is. Okay. Same lang sila. 1 yapan. So to simplify, 1 yung result. Now, if we recall this one, dx over d theta squared plus dy over d theta squared. Sa length of arc, okay, whether it's polar curve or kine, algebraic na function, pag mag-consider ta og small length, we can assume na straight line siya. So, dl and draw triangle, we have dx and dy. And from using Pythagorean theorem, this is the result. Diba? dl squared equal to dx squared plus dy squared. Now, if we divide this term by d theta squared instead of dx squared, d theta squared, then the result would be dl over d theta squared equal to dx over d theta squared plus dy over d theta squared. Therefore, the sum of these two terms is equal to this one, dl over d theta squared. So therefore, the sum of this is this one. And next step is get the square root of both sides. The result is this. And next step, cross multiply d theta sa right, dl ang bilin sa left, get the integral. Final expression is this. And this is similar to this one. So if you encounter a certain problem, R, the equation of R is given. Okay lang eh. Next, you differentiate R with respect to theta, and then you substitute, and therefore you can use techniques sa integration involving trigonometric functions. So here, one of the common problems is finding the limits. Theta equal to A and theta equal to B. So this is where your knowledge about plotting points with polar coordinates will come in. And dapat correct ang ma-plot nimo nga curve so that ang values of A and B is also correct. Ang value sa A and value sa B. Okay. Okay. Let's have this sample problem. Find the arc length of the given curve, r equal to 1 minus cosine theta. So, similar to what I did sa previous video about plotting points with polar coordinates. So, this is the result. Okay. You substitute values of theta from 0 to 360 with an interval of 15 degrees, depende sa imo. And then plot. Now, identify the biggest value of r. In this case, it's 2. So that you will know the number of circles that you are going to draw. Let's have an interval of 0.5. R equal to 0.5, 1, 1.5, and 2. So we have this one. And say, plot na to. For theta equal to 0, R equal to 0, 15.034, 30.1339, 30 degrees is this one, 0.1339, 45.29, 0.5 man, no? And then 60.5, 60 it's 0.5, and so on, 70.7, 90 it's 1. And then continue to plot the points up to 360, this one. And i-connect nimo from 0 to 360, 0, 15, 30, 45, up to 360. This is the graph. It's a cardioid. Okay, cardioid. Okay. And so let us find the length of this curve. The equation is this, and the formula is this. And so we have this one, r equal to 1 minus cosine theta. Okay? 1 minus cosine theta. And we differentiate r with respect to theta. This is the result. dr over d theta is derivative of cosine is negative sine times negative sa sine theta d theta. Now, for our limits, okay, this one. Now, one technique is instead of getting the whole length, we'll just get the length of the half of this curve. Okay? So from this point 0 up to 180. So if ang limits na to will be from 0 to 180, we get this length, half lang. And then we'll just multiply it by 2 para sa ano na curve. Okay? So therefore, we will use the limits 0 to pi, and then we'll just multiply it by 2 para total length ang makuha. Okay? Like this one. Okay. So 0 to pi, and then times 2. Sorry. dr over d theta is sin theta only. Wala na ang d theta. Okay. Typo error. It's only sin theta. So square root of dr over d theta is sin theta squared plus r squared, this one squared, d theta. And then we expand this one. Expansion of this is this one. And then if we rearrange sine squared plus cosine squared plus 1 minus 2 cosine theta. Now this is an identity. 1. No? And so simplify na to, the result is this. And then we factor out 2. Now, from here, this requires experience in order to integrate this one. Okay. So what we will do is modify na to, we'll modify this one para mo fit sa og some identities. Okay. This one. The modification is this. Okay. So from 2, we make it 4 and then 1 minus cosine over 2. And then if you will simplify this one, ang resultant is same naman natin. Okay. The target is this, to come up with this expression 1 minus cosine theta over 2 so that we can use an identity. Okay. So square root of 4 is simply 2, so 2 times 2, that's 4. We have this one. Okay. Bali, the intention is to come up with this. That is why i-modify niya para it will result to something like this. 1 minus cosine theta over 2. What's the identity of this? Yeah, let's recall. We have been using this identities techniques of integration. Sine squared theta is 1 minus cosine 2 theta over 2. So if we get the square root of both sides, we have this one. Okay. Now, this one is similar to this one, except na this is 2 theta and this is theta. So the modification is this. Pag 2 theta niya, 2 theta, theta lang na. Pag 4 theta, 2 theta sa niya. Bali twice di siya dire. Theta to theta. 2 theta, 4 theta. 3 theta, 6 theta. Therefore, if theta lang siya, if this is theta, then this will be theta over 2. Kay twice man siya sa dire. So, pag theta lang, this is theta over 2. Okay. Ay, sorry. Theta. Typo error again. 1 minus cosine theta only. Theta over 2 sine of pi over 2. So, next is we'll substitute this one. Replace this one by sine of theta over 2. Okay. Again, this is typo error. This is only theta. Okay. And this is very simple na. Okay, so we can use substitution to replace theta over 2. Let u equal to theta over 2. So du is d theta over 2. Now, if you want to use u, then we're going to change the limits from theta to u. Okay. When theta is 0, 0 over 2, u is equal to 0. But if theta is pi nila, then u is equal to pi over 2. The result is this. The limit of 0 to pi over 2 na, when theta is pi over 2 ang u. And then sine of u, d theta is 2 du. 2 du, 2 is multiplied with 4, so it becomes 8. What's the integral of sine u? It's negative cosine. So this is the result. Negative 8 cosine u from 0 to pi over 2. And then we evaluate the limits. Cosine of pi over 2 is 0. Cosine of 0 is 1. So negative 8 times negative 1, the length is equal to 8. So that's it. The formula is very simple. And of course, R is given. And it's easy to differentiate also. What is a common problem here is the limits. That is why make sure that your graph is correct, no? So that you will have a correct value sa limits. And whatever the result is, you can use techniques of integration involving trigonometric functions para makuha nimo ang final value. Okay, you can try other curves, get the length of polar curves, okay? And apply lang nimo how to plot those, how to plot points with polar coordinates. So I hope that you have learned something. Thank you for watching.